What's up, guys? I'm so excited for this show. This is the first edition of the NHL Playoff show we're going to be doing for Odds Checker. I'm JT, Ricky Bobby Betts on Twitter. My main man, Matt O'Leary. Give him a follow if you're not. He's a really good buddy of mine and a big New York Islanders fan, big hockey fan in general, and somebody who loves to, talk about puck. And that's what we're here to do. We're going to break down this whole NHL playoff bracket, talk about this first round, and, we'll go from there. You said you wanted to start with the East, Matt?
Yeah, let's work our way through the East. We got the Panthers and the Capitals facing off first. Obviously, Panthers a heavy favorite here for the series at minus 340, but what's the feel here?
Well, this is actually perfect because we were just talking about it. This is one of the few series that I think will be more along the high scoring margin. Usually when you get to playoff hockey, the defensive side of things plays through. You'll have like a 2-1 game. You'll still have games go over. The next game will, but it's more of a comes to go with how that game is played. I see if this game goes if this series goes 5 games, I see 4 going over. If it goes 6 or 7, it's like four or 5 go over, and those other ones should just be falling right on the button. Washington's been on a over terror to end this season because they're doing a lot of good things offensively, although this last week or two for them wasn't that great. We know the offensive talent that they have. Samsonov and Vanacek don't look great. I don't know who your number one is there. Do you have a number one there? I don't think so.
I would lean Samsonov, but it's not a great option.
I just think this one's going to come down to these are your President's Cup trophy winners. I'm not, there's a lot of people high on Florida to win this whole thing. I'm not. But I find it very hard to believe they lose in the first round here, especially I just feel like this Washington team's kind of drained. The guys that have had to put them on their backs, the guys who they score the power play goal when they need to grab the points, or they've won in overtime, and you know who it is. Everybody knows their names. It's Oshie, it's Backstrom, it's Ovechkin. You need those guys playing at their absolute best, and your goalie to help out to beat this team here. And it just comes down to things like Claude Giroux and Barkov are among 2 of the top 10 face-off guys in the league. Combine that with the pace and everything, it's like Washington may steal the game, they may score, but I think this is the series where Florida can still just kind of out heavyweight them. What do you got?
Yeah, they could play their game against the Capitals because, like I said, you don't really trust either Samsonov or Vanacek. At least I don't in a playoff series. I don't think either of those guys have really proved themselves yet, especially at that high of a level. But this, like you said, man, the President's Trophy winning team, number 1 offense in the league. You got guys like Duclair, Reinhart, Barkov, Huberdeau, all of them with over 30 goals. Washington's going to score some goals. I just don't think they have the goalie play to stay in this series. I'm looking at a gentleman's sweep. I'll take the Panthers in 5. Obviously have to lay the 340 to get them on the series here, but I don't really see Washington having much of a shot in this series.
I agree. I don't think Florida's play is clean enough to get that full 4-game sweep. I think that gentleman's sweep is a good call. But, I'd be very shocked if this one goes the other way. And if it does, I genuinely don't think it'll be on Florida's offense. It'll be Bobrovsky's downfall. But, I think the guys in front of him will do enough to help him out here. What's the next one?
Yeah. The next one we got up on our list, it should be a really fun series, I think, anyway. Toronto versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. Obviously, Tampa Bay off back-to-back cup runs, knocking out my Islanders against both times along the way. Got to work that in there somehow. Got to work this team in somehow. But is this the year? Does Toronto finally win one?
I don't know. You start with this one. You tell me. What do you think?
No, until they prove otherwise, I'm not going to pick it. I'm not picking Toronto. There's no way, especially with getting the Lightning at plus money at plus 100. This is the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. They're built for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Every single year, Toronto finds ways to lose come playoff time. They might have the better team on paper. And I even think that's a debate. Austin Matthews, obviously, phenomenal season from him. They have the top end talent at forward, but I wonder if their defense is going to be able to hold up enough against, like I said, man, the Lightning, they are here and they do it every single year. They go on these deep runs. I don't think Toronto gets out of the first round again.
No, yeah. For me, I want to make the argument to go both ways because I think this one, if I went to bed for 10 days and I woke up and you told me, oh, they made it, I'd be like, oh, all right. You can't really be surprised. Both these teams are insanely talented. You have your reigning back-to-back champions who are going for their three-peat, which hasn't been done since the 50s. Like that's a lot of motivation. There's a lot of guys on there who people talk about the bubble trophy and say it wasn't real, and they want to prove their point. And as far as keeping a squad together, they've done a great job. 2 years from now, this Tampa Bay team probably isn't going to look like it does right now. It's not me saying, like, I don't know how their contract situation looks. I'm just saying it's hard to keep that squad together. They have it right now. I definitely think they possess everything they need to win this. If not, they have a little bit of the edge in the sense of we've done it, we've been here before. And, Toronto's got that little bugaboo in their thing. Like they got something to beat as well. So, if they play their game, I find it hard to believe Tampa Bay loses to a Toronto team that isn't playing theirs. But here's what I will say. It takes a lot to win a Stanley Cup. It takes a lot to win back-to-back Stanley Cups. Those guys are drained. No matter how excited they are to get out there on the ice and, go do some stuff and everything. And he's Pat Burns, a family friend of mine, and my sister talks to him every once in a while, and they're all excited for it. But yeah, you act like they're not tired a little bit. Of course they all are. It's been a long run of you know how long it's a 9-month season. If you win that 9.5 almost, if you win that cup, it's a very short time to get ready for the next one. Listen, they got 51 wins. I'm not saying that they can't do it. I think they should. But if Toronto is going to do something, it has to come now, because otherwise you stay that laughing stock. Austin Matthews, Morgan Riley, John Tavares, you have too much talent on this team to just keep falling short. Now, the East is a gauntlet, but you got to be able to make it out of the gauntlet if you're ever going to win that cup. And, they have all the talent to do it. I think if they can catch Tampa Bay on their heels, they might. But I think this one goes 6 or 7 games, and unless Tampa Bay shows me something else, I'm going to stick with Toronto. One last thing on this one I forgot to mention. I don't want to talk about it for too long. The netminder thing. So they started playing Shalgren about 2 months ago, and he looked good as a rookie. But they said they're going back to Jack Campbell tonight. Jack Campbell had a great start to the year, but he hasn't been in form. Like, he hasn't really been starting either. It's kind of hard to just be like, all right, you're between the pipes against Toronto tonight, or against Tampa Bay tonight. Meanwhile, you got Vasilevsky on the other side. I just think until Toronto shows me they have the edge, this one's Tampa.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree there. But what about for this one's another interesting series? And these teams have faced off a couple of times over the last few years in the playoffs, and that's the Bruins and the Hurricanes. Hurricanes slight favorite at -115 to take the series. What's the feel here?
The Metropolitan Division is the toughest division to figure out who's going to come out of this year. I'm high on Carolina. I've been high on Carolina all year. They're a really great squad, and they play very similar styles of hockey as far as, like, they both can ramp up the offense, but they play very, very good defense. Right now, I'm leaning Boston. With Anderson out for 2 to 3 games, obviously that isn't ideal. I'm actually kind of high on Antti Raanta. I think he's good. But I'm going to say this about another series too. They play similar games, and I think Boston plays it better. They've been there through this playoffs. They know how to win in the playoffs. You got guys like Bergeron and Pasternak and everyone you really need that's going to grind out this series, because that's probably what this will be. Swayman and Allmark, that's a hell of a 1-2 punch combo. Whoever gets hot, they'll ride with. Carolina's got to be really tough and has to take one of these first 2 games if they want to win this series. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I hate to say I love the Bruins here, but they look. What do you think?
I might go the other way. Like, this is so weird for Carolina. I feel like they could either get bounced in this series or make a run to, like, the Stanley Cup final, and I wouldn't be surprised either way.
That was the first future I placed.
Was it? Okay, there you go.
Future I placed was Carolina.
There you go. So you'd be happy, but I think this team is motivated because I mentioned a few times, not last year, but the 2 years prior, they met up with Boston in the playoffs, and Boston's gotten them both times. So they've had their number here, but I think this team is obviously motivated. They have a ton of talent. And you mentioned like those big name guys on Boston, obviously, who they have arguably the best top line in hockey. It's just ridiculous, their top line. But the Canes have the best penalty kill in the league. So when you look at Boston and their advantages that they have when they have all those guys out there on the power play, I think the Canes might be able to mitigate that. Now, obviously, having Anderson out initially is going to hurt a little bit, but I too like Antti Raanta, and I think he can hold his own. So I think this is going to go 6 or 7 games, but I think I like the Hurricanes here. I think they finally get over that little bit of a hump and make a little bit of a deeper run for the first time in a while here.
I'd really love to see it. I haven't put money on this series or this first game yet. I'm still that Raanta Anderson thing. It's like the only thing that has kind of kept me from it. But I've been high on Carolina all year. I've talked about them. I really think that this team is the team to do it. Go back another year from that. Boston swept them 4-0 in the conference finals. I mean, Boston's knocked out this team 3 years. I would love to see exactly what you're talking about. Aho and the guys just go out there and get after this one. I don't think they sweep them, but if they get Anderson back by game 2 or 3, or if Ronda's playing well, I definitely like. I would lean with Carolina there if we're going to get something out of Ronda for sure.
All right, there we go. And last one in the East, you got the Rangers and the Penguins. Rangers slight favorite at -115. What's the feel in this series?
For somebody, the Rangers have been awful to me this year. Basically, I just picked the wrong spots to back them, and they're a great team. My whole feel on this series has changed a lot over the course of the last week. I think Tristan Jarry is a pretty good netminder, but he's not going to play. He's out. And that changes. Jarry versus Shesterkin with the guys in front of them can be justified for me, but Shesterkin versus DeSmith is a little bit of a different story. The Penguins they're more offensively talented. You got guys like Crosby. They kind of compare in that side of the game. I mean, the defensive side's significantly better than Washington, but their offense kind of reminds me of that. It's like you got a few core guys that you kind of rely on, but they do it well. Without that help on the back end, though, and, with what Igor has done time and time again this year, I find it hard to believe he doesn't stand on his head like twice in the series. And if he does that, I'm sure New York probably should be able to take the rest. Do you know if Jarry's out for the whole thing or not?
I thought it was the first. I think it's game 1 and 2 for sure, and then they're going to reevaluate from there. But
I'll go look while you talk about it.
Yeah, even like you mentioned it last year in the playoffs, Jarry really struggled. He's high glove side. He's very beatable. And obviously, I think the Rangers have some pretty good shooters on that team. Chris Kreider scored a million goals this year. Panarin's an absolute stud. Zibanejad is a stud up front. But this almost reminds me of the Rangers of the past when they had Henrik Lundqvist and he would stand on his head and they'd go on these deep runs. I think Shesterkin's going to do something similar. He's obviously the shoe-in for the Vezina this year. I really think he's the X factor. And you mentioned like Pittsburgh, they had a really good year and they're in it all the time. But a lot of their core is older. You like Malkin and Crosby and Letang, all those guys. They're on the older side where the Rangers are the more up-and-coming team, and they have, in my opinion, the better goalie, arguably the best goalie in the league. I think it'll be a pretty good series, but like you said, I think in maybe 2 or 3 of those games, Shesterkin stands on his head. I think of these series, this is going to be more of like a lower scoring one in a lot of ways.
I wouldn't touch a total here.
Yeah, no, I would stay away. Exactly. So I'm taking the Rangers at -115. I think they get it done here.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I like that one a lot. What are we on to now? Now we're on to the West.
Yeah, let's get out west, man. Avalanche, Predators. Obviously, Avalanche is a heavy favorite here. Do the Preds have any chance?
I thought Dallas would have had a better one. Really shocked me that Nashville blew that last game to Arizona. They jumped out to the lead. They gave it back up. I don't know if they think they have a better chance against Nashville or against Colorado, but, I don't. Obviously, the season series, Nashville was 3-0-1, or was it 3-1-0 or something along those lines. Nashville won the majority of the games throughout this regular season. That was with Saros, and now it's not. and that's a huge problem. Um, I was initially one of those guys thinking Colorado had to make a move for a netminder, like go get Fleury earlier in the year. But I've been uber impressed with Darcy Kempfer over the last 2-3 months. Not only his play, but the plays by the guy in front. The play by the guys in front of him makes him better. And without somebody on the back end to save their ass a bunch in the series, I don't. I mean, Colorado gentleman's sweep. I'll give Nashville a game, but even on this line, like I'm not looking to. I'm not betting anything here. There's just not a lot of value, guys. This is something that you could maybe look for game props or anything like that, but I'm not taking the minus 600 on the series.
No, you can't. I'm with you though. The Avalanche are going to win this one in maybe 5 games. If Nashville's lucky to get one, I think they would be lucky to get one because I really look at the Avalanche with a chip on their shoulder. After they got knocked out by Vegas last year, they just seem like a team on a mission. I know they didn't win the President's Trophy, but to me, they're the best team in the league and the most complete team in the league. They could beat you so many different ways. They have high end scoring up front. They got the high end scoring on the back end too with McCarr and Devon Tays, guys like that. And I think Kemper's actually a little bit underrated. I think he's a little bit of a better goalie than some people give him credit for. And I think he's more than capable of playing up to par for them to go on a run. Obviously, with their talent level in front of him, he doesn't have to be, an absolute star and steal series for them. But I think he'll play well enough to obviously keep them in the games. And they have just too much talent to be knocked out this early. And I don't know. I think they have too much talent to get knocked out at any point, but maybe it's a conversation for another day.
Yeah. If you wanted to take Colorado in 5, it's plus 240. And Colorado in 6 is plus 350. If you think Nashville somehow steals 2. Go the other way if you don't think they steal anything. It's plus 380 for the sweep. But yeah, I would be very cautious putting $1 on the Predators here. It's it's they what they've done with what they had this year was awesome, and I've loved it. But we've seen the cracks a couple times in the last month or so against some good opponents, and obviously they get after Colorado in the other game the other night, but they're not going to be able to do that for 4 straight or for 4 wins. Yeah.
No, I don't think so. But I know this next series is a little close to home for you, Wild and Blues. The Wild are favorites here, but is there anyone you're picking against your Blues here? As he takes a swig of water. That was bad co-hosting on my part. My bad.
No, I have 2 rules when it comes to betting my own teams. I've posted them on OddsChecker. I'm just going to reiterate them for the show. 1, it's never fade them. And 2, just don't always bet them. If you follow those 2 rules, I mean, I may be talking with a little bit of bias here as a handicapper, but, somebody who I know how to read bets, and then I know these teams very well. It's actually, I tend to be more profitable betting on my teams because I know them a little better. And, with the Blues, we've been on a great run with them here. And like you said, close to home, I think that this is arguably the best series of the opening round. It's going to be one of the most exciting, one of the more high-scoring, one of the more evenly matched. And I think it's the style of play between these 2 squads, I wouldn't call it identical, but it is very, very similar. They play the game in a very similar way. I just think St. Louis does it better. Now, I'm going to talk first about how I think Minnesota wins this because it is very much likely. Don't get me wrong. St. Louis isn't sweeping. We're not winning in 5. If we win this, it's 6 or 7 games. Minnesota, that acquisition of Fleury was great. And like you said, I think, I think Minnesota also has a little bit of a chip on their shoulder here. As far as they have the talent, they've made the moves. The management going out and getting Fleury says, hey, we're all in on you guys. Are you all in on us? And, St. Paul, it's a great hockey city. Those boys up there, they play a great game. And, I really think that if they Marc-Andre Fleury is kind of like their key to success in this series. If he plays great, it's going to be hard. He's hard to beat. Playoff Fleury is hard to beat. Doesn't matter who you are. So if he does that, it's going to be a real tough series. Regardless, I don't see either team winning in less than 6 games. But like I said, I just think St. Louis plays this game a little bit better. 3-0 sweep on the season series. Now 2 of those came down to overtime. but it really is anything you can do, I can do better. They've been there before. They've been through the playoffs. This core, the guys, the most important guys, you got 9 guys still on that Stanley Cup team who are starters, and you got the head coach. They made that amazing run, and they get bounced in the first round of the playoffs the last 2 years. We got swept by Colorado last year. We are not getting swept this year. The key for St. Louis to win this series is stealing one of these first 2 games in St. Paul. As long as we come home 1-1, I feel really good about that. Yeah, I'll let you go. I'll tap on anything else you got.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you just said there by stealing one on the road. I feel like if you're starting in the other team's barn, you always feel a lot better coming home tied because you took care of business. You're happy they're getting one on the road. Both of these teams are hot, which is kind of tough for me to get a feel on it. But as you mentioned, the Blues have their Wild's number, not only this year, but just over the last few years. I feel like they played really well against the Wild. And I really like the play of Husso. I think he's going to be really good for them in net. And I agree with you. The Marc-Andre Fleury addition was huge for Minnesota, and obviously he has that experience. He's nearing the end of his career. He wants to go out a winner again one more time. But I think this is going to be a grueling 7-game series. But I'm leaning Blues in the end in a slight advantage. Plus the value is a little bit better, getting them at plus 130. So I think I'm going to take the Blues here, bud.
Yeah, I'm glad. I appreciate it. You made me happy. No, yeah, since Craig Berube took over, they are 11-2 against Minnesota, and one of those 2 losses came in overtime. Know how to play your opponent. We've done the same thing against Boston in our career. I really think that it's going to come down to, Fleury for them, the veterans in this series. Are the guys from St. Louis and the coaches and the guys who know what they can do going to take over? Or is Fleury going to kind of let these young guys go out and get it, and he's going to set the strong base for them and fight this? It's going to be a fight. It's going to be an awesome series. But, yeah, I can't go against my boys here. I'm on St. Louis.
Absolutely. So let's do Flames and Stars. Flames big favorites, minus 350. I'll pose the same question that I did before. Does Dallas have any chance in this series against Calgary?
It's kind of the same thing I said to you. If you flip these teams, I think this is an awesome first round. Nashville, Calgary, Dallas, Colorado. Like those would have been way more interesting. In Calgary, they have been one of the most phenomenal clubs I've ever seen play hockey, like in my years of really paying attention. These last 6 months, what they've done with consistency, the relentlessness, the persistency at which they play, it's just the sheer determination they show. You talk about, it's top to bottom. Just the team plays as a unit. You have such a strong netminder in Markstrom, and they pretty much have the ability to control every game and make the adjustments to get back in it if they're not. You've seen them get their butt kicked from time to time, but you see what they come out looking in that second period. They can make the adjustment. I think this team is ready to do something. And, Dallas could win this if Calgary, shits the bed.
They have to get in their own way.
Once they, yeah, exactly. If they let Dallas steal one of these first 2 games and they go down to Dallas and somehow lose game 3, then it's a totally series. But as long as they don't get in their own way, this one should be. This is Calgary's series to lose. They've built it all year.
No, without a doubt. I think the Gaudreau and Tkachuk combo up top for the Flames obviously is just deadly. They both have had over 100 points. That's insane to have 2 guys on the same team with over 100 points. Markstrom in net was phenomenal. If Shesterkin doesn't have the season that he has, this is maybe a legit candidate for the Vezina. He had 9 shutouts on the season. He's a great netminder. I just don't think the Stars have enough firepower to be able to keep up with those 2 guys and the goalie in net. I think this is over pretty quickly. Maybe five for the Flames. Maybe Dallas gets one at home, but I don't like their chances very much either.
With how much better they play it, I don't know. It's, Ottinger's better than, what Nashville's dealing with without Saros. So maybe this is the one where you say it's the gentleman's sweep. I feel like one of these 2 series is going to be a 4-game series. I don't really know which one, but one of them should be. Yeah, that's the first round.
So we got one more. We got Oilers Kings. Almost forgot Oilers
Oh, yeah,
Kings.
we didn't forget about Oilers Kings. Thank you. I appreciate it. I was like, I feel like we are short on something here. Yeah, you can start with this one.
So am I nuts here for liking the Kings a little bit? I don't trust.
With it.
Okay, so I don't. The Oilers, similarly to Toronto, I feel like they let me down every time they get into a playoff spot. I don't trust. I don't trust Koskinen or like Mike Smith's almost 40 years old. I don't know which one of those two guys do you trust in a playoff series? I don't trust either of them. And I know the Kings are. I don't think the Kings are all that great, and most of their core is older. Obviously, Jonathan Quick's a lot older than when they were in their prime and winning those cups in the early 2010s. But this is more of a pick against the Oilers and like trying to find some value. Like usually in the Stanley Cup playoffs, you know this better than anyone. It's very rare that all the favorites win and there's not any kind of upset. So if I'm looking at all these series and I'm trying to find like, okay, well, it's one where maybe he's out of the box and people don't expect. I think it's here. I think it's in their own way. Obviously, they have a ton of firepower with McDavid and Draisaitl, and they put up a ton of points, and they're such a fun team to watch. But I just don't trust them. Year over year, it just seems like they continue to do things to prevent themselves from going on these deep runs. So kind of similar to Toronto. They got to prove it to me first.
No, I like that call. And I definitely do agree. 8 favorites aren't moving on. Whatsoever. But this is a series. It's like you said, it's kind of Edmonton's put themselves there. It's theirs to lose. They have all the talent. 2 months ago when they decided not to make a move for a netminder and said they were going to run with Mikko Koskinen, I liked the call because he looked great at the time. But he hasn't. I don't know if he hasn't been entirely healthy or whatnot. But obviously, Mike Smith's been playing a good bit. If Koskinen's in net, I think he's the one that can do it for him. I think there's a less urgency than like Toronto's feeling to like get that win. But Toronto's facing a tougher opponent here. It's like it's hard to see the Oilers choking this one, and I feel like they need to do it, but yeah, they haven't proved anything here. I'm probably not going to have a serious bet on this one. But if there's value, the value's in LA. The value's not in Edmonton.
Definitely. And that's kind of that was my feel on it. And if any of these series are going to be the upset, like we said, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised, I guess, if Edmonton won. I think they are the better team. But as we said, eight favorites are not moving on here. Someone's going to upset.
Let's talk about simple read. I mean, you read lines like a smart man from time to time. Just line discrepancies here. Calgary is minus 250 to win their series with Dallas plus 270. Meanwhile, Edmonton's minus 250, but LA's only plus 200. Why is there $75 less of the payout in that series? Because they're saying that LA has you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's
totally.
I read lines like that, and especially when you're looking at some things like this, you're looking at value plays, chopping around. It's like that's something that stands out to me for sure. I don't like. I feel like that means one of those teams is being overvalued. I think Edmonton's being overvalued.
I agree. I think that's a good way to leave it off going through on this first round. It should be a fun Stanley Cup playoff, and it was fun talking with you for this first round. I'm looking forward to all these games and all these series.
Yeah, for sure. Once we get a little deeper, guys, we'll do a little more with the picks and everything. But, it's the first day of the playoffs, and we want to get something out, let everybody know how we feel. And I'm excited to get back on here with you once we see how some of these teams are doing.
Absolutely. So for JT, I'm Matt O'Leary for Odds Checker. We'll talk to you next time.